right, well, yes.
Are we 10 o'clock? We're at 10:02, okay.
Call to order for the meeting of 6/16/2020 of the Census Complete Committee, Count Committee. And approval of minutes.
Move approval.
All right. Public appearances for non-agenda items.
Did we get a
Need to vote on
second
that.
on that?
Uh,
So maybe does it call for a second, Dorothy, is that
Yep.
the minutes, David?
Yeah,
Yep.
could call for a second.
Carmen would have to probably call for that, right?
She the only other one?
Yep.
Carmen, can you give us a second on that?
Well, We,
Second of the,
yeah, Carmen, we need a second on the call to order, or the approval of minutes.
Just tell her she has to say second.
Carmen, you just have to say second.
All right, we have a second. Should we move on to?
And then vote.
Vote. So is it all in favor
Vote, all in favor
of the minutes?
Aye.
for the minutes?
Aye.
All right, vote approved. All right. Moving on to number 3 here, public appearances for non-agenda items. Any? Okay. Agenda review.
Should be all good if you're all good with it.
Yep. All right, moving on to agenda items. Census Bureau update. Becky Schmiegel from U.S. Census Bureau.
And I can chime in and then I'll turn it over to Becky. Becky's actually on the line here. But I do want to point out, I think kind of the big thing in terms of where we're at with process is really about response rates at this point. So if you guys want to page down in your packet, I'm on page 4, up on the screen there. This is the census response rates for the city as of June 1st. So we're at about 73% response rate. That means of all our residents, 73% have responded, which is, I think, a good number at this point. I think we are ahead of the response rate from 2010, so that's encouraging. And I do believe, maybe I don't have it on this slide, but there is, we're ahead of the state in terms of response rate, and I think we're fairly consistent with the county response rate. So all that stuff is boding well for our outreach. What I'm going to try to do now is go to a live shot of that response rate. And I did include that link in your packet. It's on the top of page 4. If people want to look at that, whenever, you can click on that link, and that'll take you to the most up-to-date response rates. So just bear with me here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so now we should be seeing, oh, I lost it. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay, so what you should be seeing on your screen is the most up-to-date response rate for the city as of, I think, today or maybe last couple days. So again, we're at 73.1%, pretty good response rate. And then what we can also kind of check out is response rates by census tract. And it's a little bit hard to show here, but I think the gist of it is the darker colors are the higher response rates. The lighter colors are the lower response rates. And I think no surprises here, but we are seeing lower response rates in the northern part of our city. Again, lots of apartments up there, sometimes folks that are harder to reach. So that's where Becky can speak to this, but in the next couple of months, I think maybe later this summer, early fall, the Census Bureau will be sending folks out in the field, and they'll be essentially, they have all this stuff mapped out, and they'll be knocking on doors to get those responses from those undercounted areas. So I guess just big picture, I think we're doing pretty well. I did just want to try to show the county rate here, if we can get to that. So here's Dane County, and they're at 74.3, so we're a little bit under the county, but again, I think pretty consistent with what the county's doing overall, so that's a good thing. And then you see the state rate there as well at 68.4. So maybe before I turn it over to Becky, any general questions on response? Or actually, maybe I should turn it over to Becky first, and she can fill in any blanks, and then if we want to talk more about response rates, we can do that. So Becky, if you can hear me, hopefully you heard all that, and do you have anything to add?
Sure. So are you able to hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Super. Hi. So first, I just want to say, because I've not met with this group in person before, so I want to thank all of you for serving on the committee and for being part of this. We opened the Madison Area Census Office, which covers Fitchburg, of course, but we opened it the day that you had your training. So my colleague, Patty Gillette, came in from Milwaukee, as you recall. So I wasn't able to be with you, and I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you today. We are ever so close to being released into the field. So hopefully we will meet soon. But again, I want to thank you for being part of this and let you know that I'm your resource and I'm local. Everything we say talks about Chicago region, and that's true. That's who I work for, but I live in Madison. So I want to make sure that you know I'm right here with you, and hopefully we'll be physically with you soon. So the response rates, Wade did a great job of covering those. The response rates you're looking at right now are the ones for end of day on Monday. So it updates at the end of the day, Monday through Friday. You are doing great. I reviewed also, of course, your list of everything you've been doing. You've been doing all the right things to do outreach. Wade is exactly correct that we will be doing what we call non-response follow-up, NRFU, starting August 11th. That's when we will have people in the field in PPE, as far as we know, going door to door. This is, of course, a climate where people were already not loving people knocking on their door, right? I always say to people, I don't answer my door. I admit it. And on top of that, now people are really, even more nervous about answering their doors. So we really want to keep pushing self-response. We have the benefit of much longer, right? Self-response was ending. We have the not a benefit that people might be thinking, oh, the census was canceled or something. You never know. So the messaging we really want people to have right now is that it's absolutely on. And in fact, they can self-respond all the way up to October 31st, right? But we want them to self-respond right now. We'd love to do a push right now to let Fitchburg know, look, it's still on. And in fact, if you do it right now by phone, online, or by filling out a form if it came to your house, then nobody comes to your door. So that's the messaging right now that we want to give people and encourage them. We want to let them know that Fitchburg is doing absolutely great. As Wade said, the national rate is at 62%, the state's at 68%. You are right there with Dane in being one of the top areas in the country. Wisconsin itself is number 2 in response and has been holding there most of the time. We were number 1 for a little while, but Minnesota, hello. So what we want to do now is switch to this really targeted focus. So you've got those 6 census tracts at the top of the city that are performing under the rest of your city. I will say that 3 of them already have surpassed the mail-in rates that they had for 2010. So that's pretty good, right? So Fitchburg is doing well. And also, We want to reach everyone in Fitchburg. So I would encourage you to talk in this meeting about how will you focus in on, again, geographically, those tracks, and also the populations that we know historically are more likely to be undercounted and also are more likely to rely on that non-response follow-up, which they might not welcome this year. So, you're talking about minority communities, immigrant communities, people with disability or language barriers, young children, older folks. That's who we're looking at, and renters, as Wade said. So that's my spiel, and I'll be here with you for the whole meeting as your resource, but I'm also happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks for that feedback, Becky. So I think we're going to, then on that last note, we're going to move on to city outreach strategy tests and timelines.
Questions?
Questions? Yeah.
One of the groups that I'm working with, Becky, is a League of Women Voters group that is focusing on apartments, very nonpartisan way to promote voter registration. Is that a group that we should try to work with? Or is that?
Hi, yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm talking to David Hill.
That was a question from Dorothy.
And sometimes your voice is a little underwatery for me, Wade, but I didn't know who just asked me the question.
That was
Okay.
Dorothy Krause, one of our alders.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, the sound quality on my end is not. I'm getting it, but it's not excellent. So sorry about that. My apologies. Okay. So yes, the League of Women Voters is a national partner. We do have national partners in the outreach, and then locally, they're really doing great work. The two things you'd only want to keep in mind, they know this, I'm sure, but there are people who cannot vote, but there's no one who can't do the census.
Correct.
Right? So the important thing is that their volunteers remember, and in fact, you can use this as a plus. I have heard immigrant groups strongly talking about how you can't participate in government by voting, for example, if you're undocumented, but you can participate in getting funds into Fitchburg and services into Fitchburg by being counted. You count, you matter. That's one of the big messages right from the city. You count, you matter to us, and in fact, you can participate in our democracy. You can get representation for us by participating in the census and making sure everybody in your household is counted. So those are important messages for the league to know. Also, please, sometimes people don't pay attention to the phone numbers. We have 13 different languages that you can go online or call in. And so sometimes people get very caught up in, I don't have my form, my English is not good. We have different phone numbers for 13 different languages. So that's important. The other important thing is just that anybody who goes out, whether it's yourselves or not, if you're talking about going out, they want to be really clear that they themselves are not census takers and are not, we are all sworn. We are sworn in staff, all of our field staff. We are sworn to confidentiality on threat of a huge fine and imprisonment if we violate anyone's confidentiality. And of course, volunteers do not have that. So those are the only cautions, but the organization itself, yes, thank you, important partners of ours.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe before we do move on to the next item, I think there are some other outreach opportunities that we can talk about in the next agenda item that are relevant to this agenda item, but I think maybe saving them for the next agenda item, and I can kind of talk about them. So yeah, unless there's any other questions, we could move on to the next item.
Dorothy?
The only other question that I had was, we talked about starting August 11th to do field work. What I wanted to find out is, how are we doing advance warning to let people know that someone may be knocking at their door so that hopefully they'll expect it? That ought to be part of our program.
Yep, I have some thoughts on that too.
Okay,
But
cool.
we can talk about it as part of the next item.
Okay, I guess we will then move on to city outreach strategy, tasks, and timeline.
Okay, I'm going back to the packet. Page 6, it looks like. Basically, kind of, you guys have seen this before. So if you remember, obviously we've been in kind of a holding pattern since COVID. But we were to have a March 25th meeting. And at that meeting, I wanted to have the committee adopt this strategy, just in terms of a formal record. So I guess I would propose that we do that today, if the committee is okay with that. And again, this is just kind of an outline of formal things that the city has done or will be doing to encourage full participation in the 2020 census by our residents. And again, I think the committee's done a great job in terms of really, completing steps as identified in this table. And I think we've talked about this quite a bit, so I don't need to, rehash everything. But certainly, if there's questions or comments, I can answer those. And I guess as it relates to the previous agenda item, looking forward to how do we do better in those northern tracks. If you look at the bottom of that spreadsheet, there's a few ongoing, in terms of status, a few ongoing tasks. So 12 through 14, or excuse me, number 12, I think is the one I'd like to talk about. And Carmen, I don't know if you can hear me and chime in, but we do have some scheduled programming this summer in the North Fish Hatchery Road neighborhood. As of now, I think it's a 6-week session, once a week. Obviously, we'll have to follow social distancing protocols and those sorts of things. But I think that could be an opportunity where if we have some literature, we could certainly hand it out. Carmen and Elizabeth, our navigators, could really make sure to spread the word. We do have I think we'll get a lot of Spanish speakers attending that programming. So again, I think that will be a good way to really target some of those neighborhoods. Carmen, did you hear all that?
You good,
Carmen?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you. Did you hear that? All that stuff I just said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Anything to add on to that?
No, just that as soon as we do get the okay to be a little bit more one-on-one with people, we'll be able to, as the navigators, we'll be able to set up tables at local businesses and pass out more information.
Great. And then I guess, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Anything else to add, or?
No, because right now, I don't even know what our abilities will be yet.
Yep, and Carmen, you and I will talk, and Elizabeth as well, maybe later this week or next week, and we'll figure out, kind of where that programming planning is at, and how we can kind of dovetail it with the census stuff. So, sound good?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. And then just, I guess, 2 other thoughts in terms of those northern neighborhoods, and particularly as it relates to your district, Dorothy. I think the Boys and Girls Club maybe could be a good avenue to at least reach out to. I can certainly do that. And then I'm also thinking Latino Academy of Workforce Development. We've kind of nurtured a partnership with them through our grant program. I know they are actually being funded by the city of Madison to do outreach for the city in terms of Hispanic, Latino population, so I could just see if there could be some overlap, as it relates to maybe working in Fitchburg as well. So yeah, those are some thoughts I had in terms of, again, trying to do better in those northern areas of the city. So with all that, I guess we can certainly talk about some of those things, but I would encourage the committee maybe to call for a vote to formally approve this strategy. Again, we were hoping to do that in March, but obviously we're postponed, so. And then I guess this might be a good opportunity too for folks in the committee to just talk about if they've done things, in terms of outreach since since March. I know David had some events planned that were canceled, but it might be a good opportunity just to do a quick update from the 3 committee members as well.
From my standpoint, this is David. From our standpoint at the Senior Center, we were able to sneak one promotional event in with the League of Women Voters. We had a representative out with a table and was able to connect with multiple seniors throughout a couple of days. So that connected for the folks that are engaged at the Senior Center. However, those that are out in let's say, elderly apartment complexes throughout Fitchburg, our social workers are making sure to get newsletters out to each of those complexes, which has material within the newsletter on the census and what they need to do to not only get the census complete, but if they have any questions or concerns that the social workers are available to assist in any way with that. And Sarah Folkers, one of our social workers, is leading that charge with folks that have had questions, and so we've gotten some response that way. Also through our website, also our updates are weekly with Fact TV promoting that way as well. So we're trying to cover all bases that we know that we can do at this time. Obviously with the shutdown, that impacts what we can do one-on-one with individuals, but we've been out on different events as staff to apartments and spreading the word that way, not only about what we are doing as a department and when our reopening might be, but also the importance of the census. We always make sure that that is one of the priorities that we are connecting with as well.
And this is Dorothy. I've been in touch with Casey at Redeemer City Church. He's very interested in participating in various ways in this. He also is the current leader of the Fitchburg Faith Group, which is, or Faith Leaders Group, I guess it is, a group that interconnects the various churches in Fitchburg. And he would be able to use access to that group to help encourage the various congregations, to encourage folks to participate. One of the questions that I had for Becky probably related to the field work is, have you retained the staff that had been hired early on, or are some of those going to need to be replaced, or how is that going?
Yeah, Wade, do you want me to wait till your committee members are done? Do you want me to go ahead and answer that?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Thanks.
Sure. And also, if I can just take this moment to just catch up on a couple of points, and I will answer your excellent question. I do want to say that the Boys and Girls Club is also a national partner. I have not talked to them locally, but they are involved, and so yay, please, yes, I encourage that as a partner. I want to say that I have been working with the Latino Academy for Madison, as Wade said, and yes, please keep using them as a partner as well. They're an excellent partner in this. And also just to point out that I do have a colleague, he's in Milwaukee, but a Spanish-speaking Hispanic outreach version of me, Ricardo. And so if you are working with Spanish-speaking groups, he is also contacting them, and we can bring him into this process. So then your question, yes, thank you. We are still hiring, because that's an excellent point you make, that we lost some folks, right? They don't want to work in COVID. The timeline has switched. So we are still hiring actively in Dane County. It's important that they apply right now, because we are going to do mass trainings by the end of July. So we have to have them apply, get fingerprinted, right, be hired. So they can still go to 2020census.gov/jobs and apply online, and we really want to encourage that right now. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
And then Carmen, I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of anything you've been up to with census outreach. I know you guys have been restricted with COVID, but if there's anything you wanted to add before we move on to the next agenda item. Is that a no?
Carmen, did you have anything to add?
Wade, I didn't understand what you had said.
So do you have anything to add in terms of outreach that you've done for census in the past few months, or nothing to add?
No,
Okay, sounds good. So I guess with that, again, I would maybe propose that the committee, if they're interested in adopting this strategy formally through a vote.
I'll move approval.
Do we have a second?
I have to prompt Carmen.
Carmen, can you second the motion?
second.
Motion approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion approved.
Great.
Next on the agenda, redistricting.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, this is a little bit outside the purview of this committee, but I think it's important for this committee to understand that all the work you guys are doing will lead to this next step of redistricting. So the gist of it is, we get out there, we encourage full participation in the census, and then the federal government has all those numbers. They analyze them, and then they push those numbers to the states. And Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those numbers should go to the states by July 31st of 2021. And then soon after, the states will push those numbers to the local municipalities, meaning the city of Fitchburg. So sometime after July 31st of next year, we should be getting the final census count for our city. Becky, is that a generally correct statement?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know, I have not heard any legislative change on that.
Okay.
And so as I would tell the committee, as I told Wade, the Census Bureau is not involved in the redistricting process. Our involvement ends once we hand the numbers over to the state.
Yep, so I guess if you look at kind of this CCC as part one, redistricting will be part two. So what I did is I basically stole from the county, and I think Dorothy, you might have supplied this information. So I think the gist of it is the city will likely form another committee, a redistricting committee. This committee will be dissolved, and then a redistricting committee will be formed, and that will be a mayoral appointments. But I think, the gist of it is, I would imagine that would happen probably sometime, let's say maybe early spring of next year, when we get that second committee formed. And then just like this committee, they will meet and talk about, what the numbers look like. And then the ultimate goal of that committee is really to redistrict the city in terms of voting districts and all their districts, and wards as well. And then just an example, this is the county map in terms of supervisory districts. So really what will happen is every 10 years, based on those census numbers, these lines will change based on, where people are moving, where people are living, where people are not living, all those sorts of things. And obviously in our city, we're growing, so we've gotten quite a few new residents. So again, we will see some likely changes in our voting districts and our voting boundaries. I think that's the gist of what I wanted to talk about in terms of redistricting. But again, I think it's important for this committee to understand, where your work is ultimately leading. But redistricting is probably, 6 to 9 months off yet in terms of, forming a committee, those sorts of things. So with that, I can take any questions or thoughts on that next step.
I'll add a little bit. This is Dorothy again. Yeah, redistricting will come hard and fast when it comes. one of the things in the county document that is pointed out is that the county is being very intentional about making it a nonpartisan process. Usually, whatever party is in power is the one that gets to make the decisions. And they make decisions in their favor. What the county is doing is saying, we're not going to do that. We're going to have a committee that is not comprised of current supervisors or future supervisors or people with a vested interest in the outcome. We're going to do it in a way that it is guaranteed, more or less, to be a fair process that is going to equally divide things very appropriately and not have people doing it in a way that manipulates the system. I will encourage the city to do that as well. As much as it might be spooky to say I'm not going to take part in decisions made about the future of my districts, it's fair and reasonable for the politicians to stand back and let non-politicians do that. One of the concerns in Wisconsin is that part of the last district, and I was paying attention 10 years ago, the state decided they were going to do their redistricting first. Usually, the cities do it first, or the municipalities do it first, and then the counties build on the work that the municipalities did, and then the state builds on the work that the counties did. 10 years ago, the state threw all that away, and they did theirs first, and made the rest of us build around what they wanted. I expect that that will be the case again this year, and that's going to make it more difficult, but at least we'll have a heads up to expect that that's going to happen. So it'll be craziness, but hopefully it'll be good if we can be nonpartisan about it.
Dorothy, just a quick follow-up, and I've not been a part of this process before, so this will be new to me as well, but, I mean, the city boundaries don't have to follow state or county. I realize they'll have implications for the city boundaries, but they don't have to literally follow the lines, do they?
Well, one of the things that happened last time, because it was sprung on us, we had done the maps that we were suggesting, and then the state came and slammed in their maps and said, you guys are going to have to adopt to this.
Okay.
And what they had done was they drew boundaries that forced us to have wards that didn't fit what was legal, and we had to go to whatever court process to get things approved to do things other than what is the legally allowed way to do it.
Got it.
So they made it really difficult for our folks.
Any other questions or feedback?
Carmen's offline.
Okay.
I don't have her number.
I can call her. Do we need her to adjourn? We had adjournment? Or other business, I guess?
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. I know she's driving. She might have went through a dead zone.
I'm afraid that's what happened.
You have reached the voicemail box of 608-444-48
Hey Carmen, it's Wade. If you're able to dial back into the meeting as soon as possible, I think we probably need you to finish things up here. It's about 10:37. So, yeah, if you're able to do that, please do so. Thank you. Bye. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. Any thoughts?
Can we move on to other business, or do we need to have Carmen?
Dorothy, any thoughts?
We can continue in informal way.
Okay. Yeah, there's no other actions that will be required. So yeah, David, I would say move to D.
Okay, other business.
And really, that was just an opportunity for folks to chime in with any other questions, concerns, issues moving forward. I don't know, we'll probably have, I would think at least one more meeting, maybe a couple more, but I think, to Becky's point, I think she said, come August 31st, I believe is that's the self-response deadline. Becky, are you still there?
Yeah, so
When is
August
the,
11th is when we'll put people in the field, so the outreach should continue up until then, and then what we're really looking for is exactly what was said earlier about forewarning people, right?
Yep.
Starting in the early August and encouraging people to please go to your door, or you can still self-respond. The people that come to the doors, I don't know if this has changed now, but the protocol, as it was in place originally, was they need to go to your door 6 times before they can just go, yeah, they're not answering, right? So, yeah, our people are going to be out there. We're going to want to let them know, what does a census staff person look like? What should they have? A couple other things and then it's until October 31st. October 31st. So we've got a long time. The 2 things I wanted to point out, 2 other things if I could. One is that we're going to have a national social media push on, or is it regional? Sorry, at least regional social media push the week of July 6th. So I'll be sending you material about that way it is we go along, but I want to encourage you guys to be thinking of taking advantage of that momentum and participating in that for social media July 6th. The other thing is that I want to point out that I don't know what promotional materials you guys have. I know the senior center might be using the ones that the Area Agency on Aging just made, which is great. Mm-hmm. But I have access to a host of promotional materials for doing the census. So in different languages, with different ethnic groups, different family makeups, whatever, pictured on them. And you can see a lot of them under outreach materials at 2020census.gov. You can print out whatever you want, but I can also send you handouts directly to any of you, to your, the senior center, whatever, or your neighborhood centers, or I can send them to Wade. But let me know. It takes me there's a 2-week turnaround. So you can let me know at any point what kind of materials that you want, and I can get those sent to you. Yeah, so the actual promotional items we used to have, we're mostly out of, right? We have chip clips and some pens, I think, left at this point. But absolutely, we have a lot of handouts, and I just want to let you know that so you don't have to create that wheel. One of the big key handouts is printer friendly in black and white because it has no pictures. I believe you have that way. That's just the 3 ways to respond, and that's the only handout that has all phone numbers listed on it. So I want to put a plug in for those things.
Yeah, this is David. I think one thing that we have found out in the field with our social workers and just some of the businesses is that there's a lot of signage on, obviously, the COVID-19 updates and things like that. So from our standpoint, having something real clean and simple that will catch people's attention is important, because we're battling with a lot of different updates and things like that at many of the apartment complexes and local businesses. So that's one thing that is a concern to us, is that it might get lost in all of that. But certainly we will take materials at the senior center and get that out to the apartment complexes, especially to let them know that there will be census takers out there buzzing their apartments, so that they're aware of that, and letting the apartment managers know that it's okay to distribute some of that material around the building. Dorothy.
One of the questions that I have for Becky is, as people touch doors, do they always leave something every time?
That is an excellent question. I will find out. I do not know. I believe they do. I know there's like some kind of door hangers or something they have, but I will verify that for you and get that answer.
Okay, and the other half of the same question is how that would work related to apartment buildings that are locked, and all they can do is press doorbells. So that'll be a research question for you, I'll bet.
Yeah. Our census office works directly with apartment managers to get access to buildings. And that is something that at times, now, this is my first census, so my understanding that is in 2010, that they actually did go through partnerships. So that could look like me going to Wade and saying, Wade, we can't get into these 5 buildings. Can you help? So that is something that may involve the city as well. Just help, not like breaking in, but like asking, can we get in? What can we do? The other thing that was in plans that Congress funded that I really hope is still going to happen, that got nixed in the pandemic, were these mobile questionnaire assistance centers, where we hired staff specifically, and a lot of language speaking staff, to where we could put them at a site, like with a kiosk and a tablet, and have them help people on spot. And that was meant like we would be able to do that then, like in front of an apartment building or something. Obviously, we are not doing that right now. And that entire program, we have not heard what will be happening with it, but I have hopes that it will still happen.
That would be excellent.
Yes.
One other thing that I wanted to point out to talk about the diversity of the city. My county board district, which is largely north of Highway PD, between Heagle School and Fish Hatchery Road, white alone reported is 49.4%. Hispanic or Latina reported is about 27.9%. And language other than English spoken in the home is 27.8%. So it's going to be huge to have that information in other languages. I think the predominant languages obviously are Spanish, but there's a lot of Hmong in my district as well, and then assorted others. But I have huge minority populations.
Yes, and so just to reinforce, I really encourage you then, please, in those areas, to encourage people to go online or by phone. When you go, I don't know if you guys have seen it, you probably have, but just when you go to my2020census.gov, that's my2020census.gov, you can just toggle the form into 13 languages. If you go to 2020census.gov, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a globe, you can toggle information about the census into like 60-something languages. And you get at least a page of information. You get a video in that language walking you through how to do the form in English, right? Because a lot of those languages, but the form is not coming in. So the form's coming in online in about 13 languages. But the guides, it expands out to like 60. So there's more. The Hmong, sadly for us in Wisconsin, does not make the national cut of those 13 languages, right? So we don't have somebody to help you in Hmong by phone, right? When you go to my2020census.gov, Hmong is not one of those languages. However, when you go to 2020census.gov, Hmong is one of those expanded lists. You will get a video, you get a page in Hmong, you get a video on how to do the form in English, and you get a printable PDF guide, which I've encouraged libraries, and I don't know, well, and of course this changed, right, with the pandemic, but I was encouraging libraries just to print out the Hmong guides, right, in a place like Fitchburg and just lay them out, but your community centers could just do that. The other thing is, I will just let you know, and I have no idea of your relationship to the group, but Freedom Inc. has been doing a lot of outreach across the county to Hmong speakers and offering themselves up. Like, if your people call Freedom Inc., we'll have a Hmong person get on the phone with them and talk them through it. Again, that's not a census staff person, not the same confidentiality. But I just want to let you know that you can, if you have resources like that, the Hmong Institute is one of our partners. So you can call on the Hmong Institute. Brenda Yang does sit on the county complete count committee. So you can call on them for help because we have to create our own resources in Hmong, however, in addition to what's on the 2020 census. What I would encourage any of you to do, whether that's for the senior center or for your own area, send a note. You can just send it to Wade if you want him to get it to me and you don't want to write down my email, but you can be ultimately in direct contact with me. But let me know, what do you need in materials? You know, send me numbers, send me languages. What are your concerns? What are your populations? And I will send you some materials of what I'm able to send you and links to anything else.
Excellent, thank you.
And maybe just wrapping that agenda item up, I think, in my head, I guess I'm thinking maybe a late summer meeting in terms of the next meeting. And obviously I can send out a doodle poll to folks, but does that sound like a good next step?
Yeah,
And I guess just another point, you know, we have really been hitting social media with announcements, so we'll continue to do that. So yeah.
Anything else? All right, moving on to number 6, report from department.
Nothing?
All right, moving on to number 7, announcements.
I got nothing.
And again, maybe just a late summer meeting, and I'll get that scheduled.
Okay. And do we have Carmen back on, or is she on and off?
She's up.
Carmen, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Should we move to adjourn? Yeah, Carmen, do you have any additional thoughts?
I do not.
Okay. Should we move to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, can I get a second? Carmen, can we get a second on moving to adjourn?
Second. Aye.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.